the beginning of Mahajanpadas, that is at a time period of 600 BC. So right now in this session, we will discuss through the origin of Mahajanpadas, the rise of Magadha, the Mauryan Empire, and of course till the end of Mauryan Empire. So we will mostly look into the political aspect of it, socio-cultural religious aspects. We will hopefully move to a next video. So first of all, what we have to understand is what are the Mahajanpadas and why they were formed at around that 600 BC, the reason for it, and of course the reason for the rise of Magadha, the Mauryan Empire, and of course how it ended. So we are looking at in a time period from around 600 BC to 184 BC. Fine. So when we talk about Mahajanpada during the Vedic age, as I have told you, the way in which the social gradation had formed was in such a way that everything started with family. Then you have the Kula, you have the Grama, the Vis, Jana or Rashtras, and big Rashtras came together to form nation states, like culturally unique nation states like Mahajanapadas. So you have around 16 Mahajanapadas there. So it is stretching from us west as the Afghanistan region, where you have Mahajanapadas like Gandhara, Kambojas, and then as east as Bengal region, where you have the Magadha, that is the present day Chota Nagpur region. And the only Mahajanapada that you can find at the south of river Narmada is the Assaga or the Asmaka Mahajanapada, which is in the present day Vidarbha region of Maharashtra. So in this 16 Mahajanapadas, if you remember, during the Mahabharata time, you have Mahajanapadas. That time it was like Kurus, Panchalas, and all, but they were also present, but at the same time they were not relevant at this period of around 600 BC. The reason being, a second wave of urbanization has started. If you remember, the first wave of urbanization was during the time of Indus Valley civilization. Whenever I am talking about a time of urbanization, means from the primary economic activity, which is agriculture, that has reached a surplus. So then the people are moving into the secondary economic activities like the trade and commerce. So resulting in a large scale conglomeration of population in the urban centers, resulting in the economic upliftment of the empire, and of course that will further result in its political ambitions as well. So that is how these Mahajanapadas were formed, and of course out of all the Mahajanapadas, one Mahajanapada became very prominent, and it usurped, or it kind of engulfed all the Mahajanapadas under its sphere. That Mahajanapada is none other than the Magadha. So we will see as time progresses the rise of Magadha as well. So if you look into the sources from where we get it, it is mostly from the Jaina as well as Buddhist texts. See, the Buddhist texts like the extended collections called Anguttara Nikaya and the Bhagavata Puranas, that's a Jaina text. From there we get references of the 16 Mahajanapadas. So of course I will project the picture of the 16 Mahajanapadas to let you know where these are. And out of these Mahajanapadas, we have certain powerful Mahajanapadas. Just say like two important ones I will clearly tell. That is Magadha, and another one was Avanti. Okay, so these were very important Mahajanapadas, and the reason why it being important has also to do with its economic factors as well, because these were the two areas where there is considerable amount of mines were present. Okay, so one Avanti is there in the Ujjain region, and another being in the mineral heartland of India, that is the Chota Nagpur plateau. So right now, as I've told you about the important Mahajanapadas, its location, the result of this urbanization and all. So the socio-cultural and religious aspect of this urbanization, we will probably discuss in the next video. But in this video, I am probably looking more into the political and geographical aspect of it. So now we will discuss the reason for the rise of Magadha and why it was successful in establishing itself as the first pan-Indian empire. So the reason for it is multifaceted. So any such great empire cannot be formed just because of one particular reason alone. So we will discuss it under multiple headings. We will discuss the political, socio-cultural, geographical, then of course economic, as well as the strategic aspect of it. So I have told you, Magadha, politically speaking, it was a highly monarchical state, very powerful kings used to rule. So good amount of decision making was done at a faster pace, and so those powerful kings, which were divided into several dynasties, like the Haryanga dynasty, then you have the Shishunaga dynasty, and the Nanda dynasty, and finally the Maurya dynasty. So these all contributed in making it into a very powerful empire. So you have kings like Bimbisara, Ajatashatru, Udayan, which were the important parts, important kings in the Haryanga dynasty. So Bimbisara had matrimonial relations with the surrounding nations. He used quite a good amount of diplomacy as well as force, and his son Ajatashatru was instrumental in subduing many surrounding republican states like the Malla Confederacy and the Vajjis. So, as I've told you, there is not only monarchical states, there were also republican Mahajanpadas, but they were not as powerful as the monarchical ones. Example being the Malla Confederacy and Vajjis, from which both Buddha and Mahavir respectively had their origins from. So that is with the politically. Then I told you, along with Magadha there was Avanti, which was another important Mahajanapata, and there was almost 100 years war between Avanti and Magadha, which was finally ended by the Shishunaga. Shishunaga was prime minister of the Haryangas, and then he usurped power. He ended that war, meaning that the empire is extending as west as till the Madhya Pradesh Rajasthan region, and further there were kings like Nanda kings, like Mahapadmananda, even extended the empire as far as western India till Punjab, Pakistan region. So you have a very powerful empire, and that is also a time when the Alexander's invasion was happening from the western front. So by the time Alexander was almost reached at the western border, almost at river like Ravi, like that area where the Punjab region was there, that was the time there was he was almost planning to attack Magadha, but there was a kind of a revolt and rebellion in the Alexander's army, and he was a little bit hesitant to attack. So in during that point of time, the Nanda kings were also kind of very weak, and that is when a regime change had happened in Magadha in the form which was catapulted by a very like a Chalu kind of a person known as Vishnugupt, or probably known as the Chanakya. That is when he put a young boy named Chandragupta Maurya on the throne. He was actually from a much more lower category. So this was also one important aspect of Magadha, because socio-culturally that was away from the holy Arivrata region, making it possible for people from even distinct backgrounds to be at the helms of power. So it was not a rigid caste system was not there in Magadha, and at the same time it had economic wealth as well. A good amount of agricultural land was also there, and the capital of Magadha were always very well guarded, because either it was Rajgir or Rajgraha, which was surrounded by almost 5 hills, or even the Pataliputra, that is the present day Patna, is on the confluence of Ganga, Son, Punpun rivers. So it was very difficult for the opposing armies to come and attack and conquer the capital. That is the reason why even capital Patliputra was literally known as water fort or Jaladurga. And at the same time, just say that in the modern day, armies were mostly using tanks. So that time, the tanks were literally the war elephants, because the Magadha region being very much forested, the kings used, and not only Magadha region, it was a common occurrence among many kings, but the amount of war elephants they had was a very important factor for them in winning wars as well. So combining all these factors made sure that they became kind of a first pan-Indian empire. So lately, when although Alexander's invasion didn't happen, lately when the like Chandragupta further defeated the western commanders of Alexander and made this empire as west as till the Afghanistan region, and as south as near Karnataka region, and as east as almost the Assam northeastern border. So almost a kind of a very pan-Indian empire that has happened. So further, if you look into the Magadha empire, like after Chandragupta Maurya, there was Bindusara. Then that is, of course, lately we have the Ashoka Maurya. So that is when he further expanded his empire into the Kalinga region, and that is after the war, his conversion into the Buddhism, and to consolidate his empire more, he made sure that a kind of a constitutional benevolent state was is the necessity of the hour. So he focused on something called as the Ashoka Dhammas. Dhammas are the moral code of conduct. So if you can see a constitutional state, not exactly as per the modern definition, but still a remnants of a constitutional state was also formed in the time of the Mauryan Empire. So, and at the same time, you get evidences of these from the Ashokan rock edicts, pillar edicts, right? And the stupas were also there. Around 8,400 stupas were there at the boundary region. That is one way we actually determine the boundaries of the Ashokan Mauryan Empire. And of course, the Buddhism was propagated like a missionary religion. So when we talk about missionary, we always think about Christianity, but actually that is not the truth. The first missionary religion in the world was Buddhism. So he sent the Buddhist missionaries as far as to the Greece. And of course, in the lock edicts and pillar edicts, you find lot of engravings of Ashoka. So it was a kind of a benevolent despotism. So he considered people like his children. So like, and he said like what to do, what not to do. So many of those things were there, and it was Dhamma Mahamatras were the kind of missionaries who were sent to propagate Dhamma. So that is the element of the Ashoka Dhamma. But at the same time, you have to understand that after the demise of Ashoka, his successors were not that willing or not that enthusiastic in propagating Dhamma, and lately the empire also kind of went into the declining phase. And you have the grandson of Ashoka, it was Dasharatha, but the last Mauryan king being the Brihadratha Maurya. Okay, Brihadratha Maurya was almost a very okay, non-enigmatic figure, you can say, because he was very unpopular with the people, and of course with the clergy and the army. That is the reason why Brihadratha Maurya was assassinated while he was examining the army by his commander-in-chief Pushyamitra Shunga. So by around 184 BC, that was the end of the Mauryan Empire, when the last king Brihadratha Maurya was killed by Pushyamitra Shunga, and then began a time of Shunga dynasty. But that was not a very huge dynasty like that of Mauryas. Okay, so that was so a kind of a pan-Indian empire, and the beginning of a pan-Indian empire happened with the time of Mauryas, and later again you find a disintegrated phase in the Indian history. So that we will discuss in the next video, and also we will discuss about other heterodox sects as well as origin of religions like Buddhism and Jainism. We had a separate video specifically for Buddhism, but at the same time we will discuss certain other aspects of the religion as well. So stay tuned for that video. Please do subscribe the channel. Have a nice day.